There is literally no health without mental health. And in fact, the definition of health is that it's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Aziza Sesay, and I'm really excited because the video today is a recording of a live session in which we discuss a really important topic of mental health, how to prioritize it. And also we touched on anxiety and how to manage it, especially at this period of time where a lot of us are feeling very, very anxious and overwhelmed and overworked. There's a lot that's happened within the last year. So it was great. We had a special guest speaker, Mrs Belinda Takyi, who is a mental health nurse, and we got to go through some questions together. I think it was very well received. I hope that you enjoy this video and you find it useful. I think mental health is such a vast topic. There is so much to discuss, and of course, there's no way that we can encompass everything within one session. So this is the first of a series. Look out for what's to come. Otherwise, let's get started. Okay, so today we're going to be discussing mental health, what it is, why it's important, and I also want to emphasize the importance by stating some statistics and facts. I want to talk about different tips to prioritizing our mental health. And then I wanted to touch on anxiety because a lot of us are struggling with this at the moment. Why it happens, what the symptoms of anxiety are, and how we manage our anxiety. Okay, I'm going to give you some tips. And then I'm going to have a discussion with Belinda, who I said is a mental health nurse, just to get some of her insights at you. So I have 4 questions that I'd like to ask. They are sensitive, but everything is anonymous, so don't worry, I won't know who's answering the specific question and how you're answering it. They're all yes or no questions. So if you feel that your answer is veering more towards a yes, say yes. If you feel it's veering more towards a no, say no. So the first question is, have you felt worried or anxious about things in the last month? So all these questions are talking about how you felt in the last month. Have you felt worried or anxious about things? Yes or no? The second question is, have you spoken to anyone about how you've been feeling? Yes or no? And the third question is, have you noticed that your concentration is poorer than before? Yes or no? And finally, in the last month, have you had thoughts of not being in this world anymore? Yes or no? I know that is a really sensitive question, and as I say, it's anonymous. I just want to know where you're at with everything that we're all going through at the moment. Why are we talking about mental health, and why is it important? The last year, 2020, has been one of the toughest, most difficult, unpredictable, unprecedented years of our generation, right? There's been multiple changes. We've had to basically adjust to things with a minute's notice, and much of our lives have been extremely different to normal. And all the babies that were born last year, this is all they know, which is crazy when you think about it. And it's had a massive toll on us. It's affected our work, and it's made us more isolated. We're lonelier, we're panicky because things are so uncertain. People have lost jobs, they've had financial stressors, people have been in despair, there's been bereavement. And there's a large proportion of people, unsurprisingly, who are really struggling with their mental health. And this is why I wanted to talk about this topic now, especially. This is the best time to bring it up. And I'm hoping that it can help anyone watching this, or anyone who does watch this and knows a relative who might be struggling, can incorporate some of what's discussed, or encourage them to incorporate what's discussed. And it's also just to say that you are not alone in how you're feeling. We are all feeling this way, and it's okay. But I'm hoping that with these positive tips on managing your mental health, you'll be able to cope better. And finally, I also wanted to raise awareness on some red flag symptoms. So it will help us seek the help sooner rather than later, sooner when we can make the changes quicker than when it becomes really detrimental. Another reason why would be just doing the poll. You can see that 87% of you answered yes to feeling worried or anxious about things in the last month. 61% have answered yes about speaking to people about how they've been feeling. Perfect. I'm really pleased to hear that. 87% of people have said that they've noticed that their concentration is poorer than before, which can be, you know, a symptom of mental health problems. And the very last question, which I'm actually really relieved to see, is that have you had thoughts to not be in this world anymore? 74% of you said no, but 26% have said yes. Thank you so much for being honest about that. I know it's a very, very difficult question. I really appreciate you answering it. I'm going to give you some tips to help you allay those feelings, but I would also encourage anyone who answered yes to that question to please contact their GP as soon as possible, okay? Okay, so what is mental health? So the World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. What it essentially means is that it's a positive state of mind and body, right? Where a person feels safe and is able to cope and able to feel connected to the people around them and to the wider environment. All right. Now, there's literally no health without mental health. And in fact, the definition of health is that it's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So as I say, you can't define health without including mental health. So we need to have optimal or the best mental health that we can have, because it determines our reactions, how we handle stress, how we relate to others, how we make choices, our productivity, our ability to work, make connections, our ability to contribute to society, our perception of situations, and also how we cope. And unfortunately, poor mental health has negative implications on our physical health. So the mind and body are very closely linked, and it can do this directly. So if you have poor mental health, it can directly affect certain health conditions, so heart conditions, diabetes. It could trigger some cancers if you're constantly stressed. And indirectly, so if you have poor mental health, it can have an impact on how you live your life. You often adopt unhealthy habits, and that again can cause a detriment to your physical health. So smoking, not exercising, and that sort of thing, eating unhealthily. So there are loads of different contributing factors when it comes to your mental health. Biological factors include your age, your sex, your genetics as well, and then the biochemical imbalance within your body. It can include life experiences. So this includes things like trauma. You could have childhood trauma, or domestic abuse, violence, that kind of thing, or even racism. People have experienced racism, bereavement, social isolation, homelessness. All these things can impact on your mental health. Or it could be work related. You could be working excessively to the point that you're burnt out, or there could be bullying happening at work. You feel isolated whilst you're at work, or it could even be because you're unemployed. It could be because of substance misuse. So if you're constantly drinking excessive alcohol or you're using illicit drugs. And it could even be physical to the brain itself. So if you've had some sort of brain injury, stroke, and so on, or if you have epilepsy, all those things can contribute to your mental health. Now, just to emphasize some of the statistics and facts, mental health problems are a growing public health concern and one of the major causes of disease burden worldwide. So much so that the World Health Organization has basically classed it as an emergency and something that they're keen to focus on at the moment. It's said that 1 in 4 people experience mental health problems in any year. And more recently, it has been found that 1 in 6 people experience mental health problems in any week. 1 in 6 people, which I think is quite significant. All types of mental health problems are more prevalent in people of working age. So when they've done the surveys, they found that people between the ages of 16 and 65 are the ones that suffer with mental health the most, but more predominantly people between the ages of 45 and 55. They suffer much more than the other age groups. A higher proportion of women suffer with mental health problems compared to men. Now, this could be because of a number of things. One is that men don't routinely seek help for their mental health. In fact, they say 40% of men won't talk about their mental health problems, and a third are less likely to seek help compared to women. But saying that, men who suffer with mental health problems actually suffer more severely, in that it's said globally, 1 man dies by suicide every minute, every day. And men under the age of 50, the leading cause of death for them is suicide. So it's something that we really need to think about when we're thinking about the men. And I really hope that there are quite a few men in the audience today, because it is so important that we all take care of our mental health. The other thing to say is that the predominant mental health problem worldwide is depression, okay? And then it's followed by anxiety, which we're going to talk about, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. The World Health Organization estimates that between 35 and 50% of people with severe mental health problems in developed countries and 76 to 85% in developing countries receive no treatment. So there's 75 to 85% of people in developing countries who aren't having any treatment for their mental health. And it could well be, again, because there is some taboo when it comes to mental health, or some people don't actually believe that it exists, and they don't appreciate the severity of it. And then when we talk about suicide, more than 90% of suicide and suicide attempts have been found to be associated with mental health disorders. So this is something that is so important. I'm hoping that I've convinced you with some of the stats and the facts that I've put up there. Okay, so what are the tips to prioritizing our mental health? I have quite a few. And as I say, these are just suggestions, and you can try it and see if they work for you. So the first suggestion is have more conversations about mental health. We need to remove the taboo and the negative associations. We need to emphasize the importance. This is real, okay? So joining sessions like these are really important, encouraging your loved ones to listen to these sort of sessions, or you could play in the background. So, it's something that they start thinking about. It's also very important to have a strict sleep regimen. Now, sleep is so important for your brain. You need time to recuperate. You need time to get that energy that you need in general. And also, you need it to help your mood, because when you haven't slept enough, you're irritable, you're less productive. It's just not worth it. Now, the recommendation is that you sleep for at least 7 to 9 hours. And it's also important that you have the strict regimen, in that you go to bed at the same time every day, and then you wake up at the same time every day, so your body gets accustomed to that. It's all about routine, which I'll talk to you about in a second. And the other thing to say with regards to sleep, because a lot of us do this, unfortunately, with the phones, and we have too many distractions in our rooms when we're sleeping. So try and keep your phone away, try and keep the television and so on, so that sleep time is just for sleeping. So when I was talking about routine, it's so important that we maintain a routine at this stage, where it's so hard to maintain one because everything keeps changing constantly. And a lot of us are working from home. There's a lot of disruption with routine, but I encourage you to go back to whatever your routine was. And the reason being is the part of your brain that deals with routine is quite automatic. You don't need to think about it. You wake up in the morning, you go brush your teeth. That's just something you do. You don't have to make any decisions. But the moment that you don't have a routine, you're constantly thinking, what's next? What's the next decision? So on and so forth. And that part of your brain gets exhausted. And that will affect your mood. That will affect your mental health. There's only so much that you can decide in a day. And going back to routine with planning ahead, okay? Thinking through things, making a to-do list. What's the next thing that you need to do for the day? right? Write it all down so it's not in your head again. So things are sort of automatic. You're going through a sequence as opposed to constantly making decisions. And they're also say if you plan something fun or something exciting to do ahead as well, you release the feel-good hormones the whole time that you're anticipating this fun event, as well as when you're doing that fun event. It's important to have a gratitude journal. So when I talk about this, I just mean that write down things that make you feel good, that make you feel happy, all right? Things that you're grateful for, because a lot of times we can really focus on the negatives. So maybe take some time either in the morning or at night before you go to bed and write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be as simple as I'm grateful for family, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for warmth, that kind of thing. Or even some people have a gratitude jar where they write down little notes about things that make them happy whenever it makes them happy, and they put them in the jar. And then they look at those notes when they're feeling down to remind them actually things aren't that bad. Or you can have a gratitude photo album. So a lot of us have phones. You can maybe make an album of pictures that make you happy. So whenever you're starting to feel a bit down, go through those pictures again to sort of alleviate that feeling of sadness. And exercise. Exercise is great, not just for your physical health, but also your mental health, because it helps to release those feel-good hormones, your endorphins, and it makes you feel happier and gives you more energy as well. And as well as exercise, it's so important to spend some time outdoors. I know obviously with the restrictions, I would say go out, but obviously maintain social distancing and be safe. But there's nothing like fresh air and just looking at nature to make you feel better. Even if it's just going for a 5-minute walk, it can really break up the day and improve your mood. I would also encourage you to limit the amount of news that you're watching, particularly now, because everything you see is quite distressing nowadays. And limit your use of social media as well. See if there's an association with you with how much news and how much social media you're exposed to, and perhaps limit it to maybe an hour a day. Don't watch it constantly. Limit it for a short duration of time, and that's it. And you'll notice a change in your mental health. And set boundaries, so limiting news and social media, but also set boundaries with family, friends. And it's okay to say no, as long as it protects your mental health and it's what's best for you. Don't push yourself too much. Recognize your stressors and try and avoid or manage them. So when I say stressors, I mean things that make you feel really worried and anxious or stressed. So for instance, if you're someone who gets stressed out about the amount of food that you need to make during the week, why don't you plan it out, do meal prep, and then you'll have perhaps a bulk of food already ready, so you don't need to constantly think, oh, what do I have to cook tomorrow or for dinner or lunch and so on. And notice self-talk. One thing that I find that a lot of us do is we can be so critical of ourselves, and we can say things that we would never imagine or dream of saying to anybody else. So try and think of this, stop yourself when this starts to happen, when you start to say things that are self-deprecating or too negative. Take a minute and be kind to yourself and rephrase what you're saying. So instead of saying, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, say things like, I have the capabilities, I'm going to try. Look at yourself in the mirror and really will yourself. Positive affirmations, it really helps. And very important, keep in touch with friends and family, stay connected, particularly now when a lot of us are feeling really isolated. I mean, thankfully, this has happened now where we have the privilege of the internet and Zoom and all of these things where we can connect. It's not the same, I know, as being face-to-face, but still utilize these facilities and connect with people. Don't isolate yourself. And I always talk about giving back. Now, giving back is so important because not only does it make the other party feel good, it makes you feel good. There's a lot of science that's connected with it that says that, yes, it releases the feel-good hormone. It also, it makes you feel like you have purpose as well. And during this lockdown period, there's been loads of people who have started initiatives to give back, and it really makes them feel good. Like, this makes me feel good. And prioritize you. That is like the most important tip that I will give you. You only live one life, and there is only one you, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you don't prioritize yourself and give yourself what you need, then you'll struggle, but also those around you who need you will struggle as well. Just like they say in the airport with the oxygen masks, you put yours on first so that you can be there to put the mask on someone else who's more vulnerable. So please prioritize yourself, okay? All right, so that's the first half done. I want to do another quick poll. I hope that you're finding this helpful. I know it's a bit heavy. So it's yes or no questions again. I'm just curious, do you practice mindfulness or meditation? So this is where you are sort of present in the moment and, you know, focusing on your breathing and the things around you for a bit. Do you believe that counseling can be beneficial? I'm curious to know what you all think. And finally, can having anxiety be a good thing? Would you say that's a yes or a no? All right. So we can move on to anxiety. Okay. So anxiety is what we feel when we are worried, tense, or afraid, particularly about things that are going to happen as opposed to what's happening right now, what will happen in the future. So when we talk about COVID-19, a lot of people are worrying about what the effects could be, what is the long-term effect, what's happening next. But I want to emphasize that actually anxiety is a natural hormone response to a threat, okay? It's our body's way of preparing for fight or flight. So you have different things happening. When this happens, your brain releases different hormones and gets different parts of your body to release more hormones, so your adrenaline and cortisol and so on. And this causes different aspects of your body to change. So you have your pupils become dilated so you can see better. You notice you might not be hearing as well, again, to focus on what's in front of you. You don't salivate as much, so you don't produce as much saliva. Your heart starts beating really fast. You start breathing fast. You start getting quite sweaty and so on. And all of this is your body's way of preparing you for fight or flight. And it becomes a mental health problem if it impacts on your ability to live fully. Okay? Sometimes anxiety is an indication that our needs are not being met. So our body is trying to tell us, oh, wait, you need to take a minute, something isn't right here. So symptoms of anxiety, there are loads. I'm just going to talk through a few of them. Obviously, some may experience one or the other, and there are additional ones, as I say, that I may not mention. But majority of the times, symptoms include feeling excessively worried, irritable, restless. You may be physically or mentally exhausted. You may find that your sleep is quite poor. You have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. You may also find that you have poor concentration and the inability to complete tasks. And you may notice that you're getting panic attacks. So when I say panic attacks, what I mean by that is basically where you get this production of intense, overwhelming feeling of fear, which can be very debilitating. And it happens because, you know, your anxiety has gotten too much of an extent. And then you may have physical manifestations. So this is where you may get tingling all over your body, or you may get twitching of your eye, or the shortness of breath, headaches, chest pain, so on and so forth, which can be different for different individuals. And I wanted to quickly just mention a story about a patient I had who presented because they were having this lump sensation in their throat. They constantly felt like there was something stuck in there. So we did everything that we could. We gave the medication. We did all the relevant investigations, but everything came back normal. And also she didn't seem to be responding to the medication. And those symptoms started around the time of the first wave of COVID, right? And when things started to ease off, her symptoms went away. And I hadn't heard from her until in the last couple of weeks, where obviously the cases are surging again and the symptoms have come back. So now we're exploring the aspect of the symptoms actually being anxiety, because we've done everything and checked everything. So we're going to go down a different road to management, which is where I'm going to talk about here. So how can we manage anxiety? Now, Zainab, if you could put the poll up. I was just curious to know what your thoughts were on those questions, because I'm going to give you some advice on anxiety. So, do you practice mindfulness and meditation? Okay, a good 36% of you said yes, and 64% of you said no. I'm hoping that we can change that by the end of this session. Do you believe that counseling can be beneficial? 91% of you said yes. Very, very good. Great, that's perfect. And 9% of you said no. Actually, it's been said that counseling helps about 80% of people. So those stats go with that. But I'm hoping, again, I can convince you all that counseling is great, because I'm a big advocate for it. Can having anxiety be a good thing? 50-50. Okay, great. As I said, anxiety is important. We need that level of anxiety to help us in dangerous situations. So I agree, it is 50-50, and we need it to help us thrive. But again, if it's too excessive, we're not able to. So the first thing I would say with regards to managing anxiety is that we need to recognize and acknowledge that we are going through it, that we have anxiety. With any condition, unless you have that first step, we can't manage it. You have to accept it as well within yourself, so then we can move forward. So here are some self-care remedies, but I'm going to say here, please, please, please seek help. If things are getting really difficult and they're overwhelming, yes, the self-care strategies are there to help, but do contact your GP or get some more support to help you in addition to these self-care strategies. Now, the first thing I would say is learn about what symptoms of anxieties are for you as an individual. So for instance, for me, when I'm stressed or anxious, I get tingling on the left side of my body, and also I get twitching on my left eye. And I know that, so I know that means I need to take a minute and rest up a little bit. So learn about what it is for you. Also, there's an acronym known as HALT, right? So if you start feeling like these symptoms are coming, literally halt, okay? Stop for a minute and ask yourself these 4 questions. Do I feel hungry, right? Because sometimes if we have a lot of work to do, we forget to eat. And because you're hungry, it then aggravates your anxiety. So think, have I eaten? If you haven't, go and eat something. Am I angry? Has something happened to make you feel angry? Because again, when you're angry, you're not going to be productive because you're constantly thinking about whatever it is that's making you angry. So take some time to calm yourself down, whether it's meditation, breathing exercises, or going for a run or something, so that you can combat the anger to help with your anxiety. Or talk to someone about how you're feeling. And then another question is, are you lonely? Do you feel lonely? When you feel lonely, that can aggravate your anxiety. If you feel that way, if you feel like, oh, I haven't actually spoken to anyone all day, maybe I need to call a friend or someone I'm close to, someone I can trust, that can help to uplift your mood and uplift the anxiety symptoms that you're feeling, or resolve them. And the final question is, am I tired? So sometimes we're so worn out and we don't realize it. But if you take a minute to ask yourself, am I actually tired? Do I need to get some sleep? That can help as well. Focused breathing. Now, focus on your breathing. When we're anxious, our breathing can be quite shallow, can be quite fast. And it's something to really think about and notice, okay? So for instance, I could be sitting next to my husband and he'll just turn to me and like, what's wrong? Because he's noticed that I'm breathing really fast. So take the time to notice your breathing when you're starting to feel anxious and do something called box breathing. So this is where you're taking deep breaths in and out with a break in between. I want us to try that in a minute. Also, retrain and challenge your thoughts or your inner voice, okay? So focus on the things that you can control. If you're having thoughts like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? What if I get COVID? What if I end up giving COVID to my family or my friends? So on and so on. What if? Challenge those thoughts and think about what you can do and what you can control. So one thing that you can control with regards to COVID is you can control what you do as an individual. You can, avoid going to places, make sure that you're wearing a mask and you're adhering to social distancing rules, so on and so forth. That way, you know, hopefully that you shouldn't get COVID, and then that anxiety you have passing it on will go. So yeah, try and retrain your brain and focus on the present as opposed to constantly worrying about things that you can't control. And then try and soothe yourself to calm down as well. So this is where you literally talk to yourself when you're feeling anxious and you say, I'm okay. Everything will be fine. I'm okay. I'm safe. Everything will be fine. Say this to yourself until you've calmed yourself down. Tell your brain, look, I know that you think I'm worried. I know that you think that there's a threat, but there's nothing. I am fine. Another thing you can do to trick your brain is, so I said to you that when you're anxious, you don't produce as much saliva. So you can chew gum, which then increases the saliva production. And then your brain thinks, oh, wait, there's a lot of saliva. So oh, she's not under a threat, everything is fine. So you just cancel that loop. That's something to try out, or drink loads of water. So again, your mouth isn't dry. And meditation and mindfulness. So when I say this, it's literally just being present in the moment, focusing on your breathing and taking some time to notice you, your body, you know. Take a minute and sit down and just relax. Give yourself that spiritual healing. For some people, prayers really helps, and it makes such a big difference to have that spiritual element as well, where you take that minute to talk to, you know, God, so that again that calms your nerves, if you believe in those sort of things. But that's really important. That's an important aspect that could help quite a few people. And try and avoid triggers, okay? So for you, if it's watching the news, if it's social media, avoid those things to try and prevent the anxious symptoms from coming. And try and maintain connection with your family and friends, as long as they don't aggravate your anxiety. But yeah, people that you feel close to who can help and support things. And finally, there are professional remedies. So as I say, speak to your GP. I'm here, we're here for you. We're here to support you. We're listening to you, and also to refer you to relevant people or point you in the direction to people who could potentially help. Counseling is great. We have cognitive behavioral therapy, which can help you manage your problems by changing the way that you think and that you behave. And as I say, 80% of people, it makes such a massive difference with regards to counseling. And cognitive behavioral therapy is really found to help people with anxiety. And then there are medications as well that you can take. I want to take just a little bit of time talking about medications, because for some people, as soon as you mention medication, they're like, no, I'm not taking it. It means that something is wrong with me. I'm going to get addicted. It's bad, so on and so forth. There's a lot of negative association, but actually, for some people, they need that boost to get them out, to get them to even start to try out those self-care remedies that I'm talking about, to get out of bed. And as I say, for some people, they have hormonal imbalance that affects their mood and causes the anxiety. So if we can try and balance out the hormones by giving medication, it could make such a massive difference. And there are different types of medications when it comes to anxiety. You have the fast, short-acting ones where essentially they stop your body from thinking that there's a threat, the release of adrenaline and so on. We call them beta blockers. You take them, they're instant relief. Take them maybe just before you feel like the anxiety symptoms are about to start, or if you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be anxious. We can't give those medications, though, to people who have asthma, unfortunately. And then you have the long-term medication. So these are ones that we prescribe, and we often encourage patients to continue for at least 6 months. Now, with any medication, you may experience side effects, and often people do say they get some side effects from up to 2 weeks. But again, things normalize and it's fine. Your body gets used to it. And again, it takes a bit of time before you start to notice symptoms. It can take up to 2 weeks. So please be patient. And then it takes up to 6 weeks to get the maximum effect. But we encourage you never to stop the medication abruptly without speaking to your GP, because again, it can cause rebound symptoms if you stop it abruptly. So you can actually feel worse than you did before you started the medication. As I say, we only encourage it for 6 months. And if you feel ready to come off them, we will discuss it with you as doctors, and you can wean off them slowly, depending on how you feel There's no shame in taking medications, and there's nothing negative if you need it, okay? All right. I know I did a lot of talking. I hope that you found that useful. I'd like for Mrs. Belinda Takyi to get on board now. I wanted to have a quick discussion with her, some questions and answers that we can go through, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Okay. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Oh, okay, thank you, Dr. Sesay. Thank you, everyone. Hello, thank you for having me. What a pleasure to be here this evening. My name is Belinda. Just call me Belinda. I'm a mental health nurse. I've been a mental health nurse for God knows how long, but let's just say over 10 years. And that is me. Very, very glad to be here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than here this evening.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm going to jump right into it. So first question I wanted to ask is, what are the common myths you find people have about mental health, and how can we combat this?
Yeah, I think some of the common ones I get is associating mental health with aggression. That's one thing. As soon as somebody hears mental health, it's about violence and aggression. And then there's a bit also about medication, that everything is done through medication, which is not true, because we have talking therapies and other things, as you've rightly said. And then there is also about recovery as well. Some people think once you get it, even back to the medication, some people think once you start, you can't stop and you are on it forever. And recovery as well, people think you cannot recover, but you do recover from mental health. So those are a few of the myths that I have come across so far.
Yeah, so how do you think we can combat the myths?
The only way, there's no shortcut, the only way to combat them is through education and raising awareness. And that is what we are doing right now. We are educating ourselves this evening, and it's so amazing. And I'm so touched by the number of people that are here. But it shouldn't stop with us, because we are about 42. Can you imagine if we go and share what we have learned this evening with our families? We can triple it, we can quadruple the awareness. So please, everyone, it's about education and awareness, reading, joining programs like this, please. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, another question is, as a mental health nurse, what would you say the commonest way people with anxiety present?
So I think you were very exhaustive on that one. So I think you have said most of them. But what I have also noticed is that it coexists with low mood a lot. Anxiety coexists, so one affects the other. So I do see coexistence of anxiety with low mood, but the rest of them you've mentioned, such as irritability, not being able to sleep, feeling of hopelessness, restlessness, low self-esteem, there's all of that. But majority of them, it coexists with, it affects your mood, how you feel.
Okay, thank you so much. That's great.
Welcome.
So I just wondered, for a lot of communities,
Yeah.
particularly that of Black and ethnic minorities, when you
Yeah.
talk about mental health illnesses, they think it's a taboo, right? And they
Yeah.
often associate it with negativity.
Yeah.
So I just wondered, what can we do to remove those sort of associations, that negative link?
Yeah. So it sort of ties in with the first question of what we can do to raise awareness. Mainly is awareness, but we can't raise the awareness if we don't have the knowledge ourselves. So knowledge is power. We can read, we can join programs like this, and also let us be curious about it. Let us be mindful about it. Let us have a dialogue with our families. If we open up and show interest, people will approach.
Yeah.
Automatically, people knows how passionate I am with mental health, and they won't go to other people. They will come to me because they know that they will have a positive reception from me. Whereas if we go about talking negative stuff with people, they might not say anything then, but later on, if they have their own problem, they will not come to us. So it starts with us being advocates. If each and every one of us become advocates of it, then together we'll be stronger and we'll be able to sort of, squash it and just get that out of the way so that people can talk about it more. And I like the way you have educated us that there is no health without mental health. It's same. So that is more education, more awareness that needs to be raised.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then when do you think people should seek more support from the mental health services? When should they ask?
Well, yeah, that is a brilliant question. But I wish I could have a straight answer to say when you see this, that. But where I want to start and ask of everyone is be curious about your mental health, just as you are curious about your physical health. There's something we call point of reference, POR. And when I meet somebody assessing them, I ask because I don't know it, and I ask from them. So you yourself should be able to know your point of reference. So that is where you start. Know your point of reference so that when you are regressing or progressing, you will know. And if there's any changes, so know your point of reference, be very curious about it. Then once you notice a problem, try to do something about it. So take the initial steps. And if you feel that your strength, your coping mechanism can't fight it, then it's time to seek help. We all have coping mechanisms. Experiencing a challenge, it means there is a coping mechanism that is not functioning somewhere, and our ability to solve it ourselves is there. But if it's beyond us, then reach out, please. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
That is so
Yeah.
true. Know your limits, basically. Be
Yes.
aware of you and,
Yes. Yeah.
what you're able to cope with.
Yeah.
Someone asked before the session, they were just curious to know what they can do if they're having a lot of negative thoughts, like constant negative thoughts. What can
Yeah.
they do to change that aspect of things?
Yeah. Okay. So I always say there's this phrase in DVT that we say, always water the flowers and not the weeds. If you don't remember anything, remember this: water the flowers and not the weeds. And I also want us to be mindful of the fact that we are not our thoughts. We are witnesses of them. Sometimes I see young people at A&E and they say, I'm hearing voices in my head. So I said, you are in charge. Evict those thoughts. But as soon as you evict it, you have to replace it. You can't leave it empty. It's just like any space. If you leave it empty, negative one will come. So you have to be in charge. You are a witness of your thoughts. And I let them experiment it by saying hello in your head and be quiet, not verbally, inside your head. And you realize that you are witnessing yourself saying hello inside your head. That is how I explain to children, and they understand that we are not our thoughts, we are witnesses of them. So you have to water the positivity, water the flowers and not the weeds. So quickly replace it, because there's a saying that what you don't appreciate will depreciate. So if the negative thoughts are coming, do not appreciate it, just ignore it, replace it with positive, and quickly you'll be able. It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time to master it. And it is also about mindfulness, because when our thoughts are wandering, it's either we are focusing on the past pain or future fear, and that robs us of our current purpose. So mindfulness, I think you have stressed on that enough. So these are the small tips. Water the flowers, not the weeds, and you'll be all right.
Amazing. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Another question that was asked was, someone had a very, very difficult childhood. There's some resentment that's still lingering on, and it's affecting their adult relationships. How can they move on? What can they do to sort of resolve these issues that they've had?
Oh my goodness, that is heartbreaking. But let us be honest, Dr. Sesay, you have gone through some experiences in your life. If I should lay bare what I've been through, and most of us from our Black cultural background, there's a lot of experiences we went through growing up. That is what I call strongholds. They are strongholds because they leave scars on our psyche, on our emotions and everything. And they are very powerful, and they can rob us from the future. What we have to remember is that some of these experiences are even started with our not our moms, but our grand. And it's been passed on to our moms or carers, and it's passed on to us. You have to be determined to say that it stops with you. Because if we are not mindful and don't fight it, we will transfer it. And what a negative inheritance to pass on. I always say that we are product of our past, but we can't afford to be prisoners of it. We can't help what happened to us in the past. So yes, we are product of it, because for example, this question, it is affecting the future and everything because of the past experience. But if we allow it to go on, then it's going to disrupt our present and our future. So we need to be set ourselves free, break free from the stronghold, and that no one can do it but us. We have to be determined. If not for us, even for people around us. I've been through some experiences that is a stronghold, and I don't want to pass it to my children. So I fight it and say it ends with me. Stronghold are hard. We have to be intentional, because success is intentional. So we have to not to be prisoners with it.
Yeah, no, I love that. That is so true. Like, you have the power, but it's also, this is again where support with counseling can really, really help.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say, that we have to reconcile with it to be able to file it for experiences. We have to reconcile with it. And that is why sometimes if you cannot overcome it yourself, then that is when you reach out for counseling, for talking therapy, to be able to set yourself free from that.
Yeah, and it can be difficult initially. It will be painful because you're opening up scars that you sort of blocked away for so many years. But then eventually you will get set free, you know? Okay, whew, so much. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Belinda. I'm going to pass it on to my co-host in case there are some questions that are on the chat box. And we'll move forward. Okay.
Happy New Year and welcome, and thank you so much for everyone attending Talks with Dr. Sesay. Thank you, Dr. Sesay and Belinda. It's been such an informative and wonderful session. Right, so I'm going to ask the first question. I said, how can one practice mindfulness?
Okay, so I think that's a great question. With regards to that, I would say that there's so many different techniques. And one tip I would give you is just make sure that you are in a quiet room by yourself, sit up, okay? Make sure that you're sitting up, and then set a timer, because again, it can be difficult if you don't actually set a timer. And just start off with a couple of minutes, set a timer for 2 minutes, and close your eyes, take some deep breaths in and out, and focus on your breathing. Like, just take the time to focus on your breathing, on your body, and how things are moving within you, right? And then when you feel like your mind is wandering, notice that, and then again, refocus your thoughts on your breathing and your body. And eventually with time, you can build the time limit. So you can increase it from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Some people can meditate for hours, literally just focusing on their breathing, and that helps. But Belinda, do you have anything else that you can say?
The only thing I want to add is that it's brilliant. What I've noticed is some people struggle a lot to start. And so for those that are novice to it, that mindfulness is simply being present. So whatever you choose to do, you can be washing the dishes, but concentrate on the tap that is running, that is being mindful, not multitasking. Cook, but concentrate on it, not cooking and being on the phone. Even if you can't sit, some people struggle to sit, go out for a walk. What you have to notice is one step ahead of the other, one foot, the footsteps, the bed that sink. So try basic form of it, and then build yourself to a point where you can sit and concentrate. But it's doable. It's doable. Just find your style and start from somewhere.
Last question. It says, how would you encourage opening up to others if one of your signs of anxiety is to close off?
You see, anxiety, there's always a reason for that. There must have been a reason why that anxiety has been triggered in the first place. So for not wanting to be open to others, it means that maybe you've been let down, or you've been disappointed, or you've been betrayed before. So what you can do is, if you know if we don't conquer our fear and bury it alive, it tends to bury us. And this is how serious we might take it. So if you know the trigger of it and what is going on, one tip I would say, I want to add with anxiety is make sure you label the emotions well, that you feel anxious about asking someone. Don't say I am anxious about, don't say I am, never define yourself by that, but you feel anxious. I know that Dr. Sesay mentioned about HALT, which is brilliant. I'm going to add another acronym to it as to how you can talk yourself into doing what you fear doing, and that is enjoy. Enjoy. And this enjoy, if anybody can type it, there is some for exaggerate the situation. So the worst extremes, what the worst that can happen and the best that can happen, that is to end. E is for exaggerate. Then N is negate the realities. So okay, what if this worst happen? How am I going to feel? I'm going to feel here again. Here we go again. I've been let down, but I'm conscious of the time, so I'll be rushing a bit, you know. And the positive, if it goes well, then it means I have overcome my this and that. So you negate the realities. Then you go on to justify your feelings. Why am I feeling this way? I'm feeling this way because I feel that I will feel let down again and all of that, and that will set me back and all of that. So once you justify it, no judgment and nothing at all, open yourself up to all possibilities that I'm going to tell Dr. Sesay what something, it can go wrong, it can go right, but I'm determined to go. And then you tell yourself, I can do it. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, I can do it. So the enjoy is to exaggerate, negate the realities, justify your feelings, open to all possibilities, and then tell yourself you can do it. And yeah, most practical steps is about us. So we have to dig deeper and you'll be able to overcome it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I would also say everything takes small steps, baby steps. Okay. Yes. So you psych yourself up. Either find someone that you truly, truly trust. Yeah. And sort of start slowly, maybe mention one thing and then build the confidence until you get to a stage where you feel open enough that you have the trust. And when I say it could even be a professional, so it could be me as a GP, you could come to me and I'm not going to force you to open up. It's a gradual process because we build a rapport, we build a relationship. And I've had it where patients initially, were a bit on edge and wouldn't open up. And eventually with time, again, it takes a lot of patience. They've opened up and it's made the world of a difference. So in regards to that question, slow and steady, it will get there eventually. I hope that everyone found this session helpful, and I hope that it's opened your eyes or at least start the conversation about mental health. I'm so, so grateful to have Belinda here. It's been amazing. We could have gone on for hours.
It's been fantastic.
This has been great. The take-home message is please nurture your mental health. It's vital. Ask for help. Seek support. You're not alone. Recognize your red flags. Listen to them. Prioritize yourself and your well-being because you're important. There's only one you, and no one can take better care of you than you. Belinda, do you want to say anything?
No, you've said it all. Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, everyone.